Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Afternoon to everybody out there as well. We're going to get started in about 2 or 3 minutes, give some folks time to come in. So stay tuned. Feel free to say hello in the Q&A section and also let me know if you can hear us okay. All right, so we'll give it a couple minutes. All right, I think we're going to get started here. So we're about at 1:01 here. I still see people coming in to the session, but we'll go ahead and get started. This is, to make sure you're in the right spot, office hours or training for teams specific to the DAS group. So I did do a session this morning that was more general for really anyone in the state of Ohio, as well as some of my other account to join in. So that's really the kind of the flyer you're seeing here, but just FYI, this one is specific to DAS, so we can really talk, about specific agency things. Feel free to use the Q&A to give questions, and we will try to answer them as we go along. And in fact, to help me with that, I have two of my peers on the line who are going to be helping with Q&A and chiming in from time to time. Can you guys introduce yourselves?
Hey, Ricardo. This is Stacy Mildenberger. I am a CSM in the state of Florida. Glad to be on the call with you today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Asaita, and I am a Customer Success Manager for DC, Virginia, Maryland area.
Thanks. And hopefully you guys know me. Ricardo Wilkins, also Customer Success Manager for State of Ohio. And I'm glad my peers could join on. As you might imagine, we're doing these somewhat regularly in our accounts, across the public sector. And so they graciously agreed to help out, to help with the questions and whatnot. So what we'll talk about today, though, is it's this understanding that you guys are starting a work from home culture, and many of you are starting to use Teams for the first time. So what does that look like, right? Hey, I don't know what Teams is. Or maybe I know Skype, I don't know Teams. What is it? And that kind of thing. That's kind of what we'll go through today. This doesn't have to be the last session. This can be one of several as we continue to support that remote work concept. But hopefully this gives you enough, high level information to feel comfortable getting started. That's the goal. Again, QA questions in the QA box as we go along. We're happy to shift and pivot as we need to as we move forward with this. So hopefully that works for everyone. So let's jump right in here. If I scroll ahead, yeah. So as we talked about, a couple of things we want to talk about. So one, I just want to really quickly talk about the live event concept. It's a feature you guys own. I know across all of our accounts, more people are interested in what do I have that can help me with broadcasting things to large audiences. That's what this is doing. So I'm going to just show that very briefly. It's super easy, at least the Teams aspect of it. But then we'll talk specifically about Teams and your typical meeting that you will start having, as you're working remotely. And all of this will be a demo as well. I only have just a few slides, really. It's a lot of demo. And then I like to also close it out with kind of, okay, Ricardo, I've heard all that stuff you just said, but what do I do first? When I end this session, I go back to my desk, what's the first thing I need to do? And so that we'll talk about that, but certainly question and answers throughout. Saida and Stacy will be able to, shout out things as they're coming across. All right, so hope that works for everybody. So real quick about live events that we're using right now. That is something that is a part of your subscription. It lets you broadcast up to 10,000 people, basically webinar style. It allows them to click a link like you just did and watch the event, online through your browser or through your phone. It doesn't include a number for all those 10,000 people to simply, call with a traditional, phone and just call in. But if you've got internet in the browser, you should be able to attend a live event. The one that I kind of call the easy button here, this Teams live event, is what we call self-produced, kind of like the image there shows. It's you in front of your computer, you set it up and you're up and running, with this broadcast. There is the concept of what we would call studio produced, a more elaborate version. And I don't even know much about that. That's for when you've got multiple cameras or, kind of high-end production. It involves encoders and all these other things. But again, I'm not familiar with, not enough to speak on really. That is a concept as well, but the one that I'm going to show here in 2 minutes is what we would call the self-produced or the Teams live event. I like to call it the easy button. So let me show that here for a sec in my demo environment as I switch over. So, here we're in the demo environment, and we're going to go through all of this, that you see here in terms of kind of understanding what Teams is, what the different pieces are. But specific to the live event, if you wanted to fire one of those up today, I can click over here on the calendar, and this is where I would schedule a Teams meeting. In this case, I want a live meeting, but it's really in the same button. So I'm scheduling a new meeting. This would be a typical live Teams meeting, but with one drop down, I get a new live event, which I can, title. I don't really have to do anything with location. I give it some, the times I want it to start and end. I can decide who my co-presenters are in this case, or co-producers. The producer is the one that kind of manages what's being shown at any given time. I hit next. I've got some options related to whether I want the live event to only be seen by people in the organization. In other words, they have to sign in to see it, or is it a public event where anyone with the link can view it? And then some options about the recording abilities, whether to give Q&A and that kind of thing. So once I do that, that's really all there is to the setup. It's now available. This link goes out to the 10,000 people. And this link is what the producers and presenters use. I'm joining this one as a producer. I go ahead and join now, and I'll just show what the interface looks like. So you can see here, it's really just a matter of all of your presenters being down at the bottom, sharing, whether it be PowerPoint or sharing their video or anything like that. And then you as a producer deciding which thing to queue up and hitting the send live button and then send that over so that the attendees can see it. In addition to that, you've got the Q&A section that you can monitor and answer and so forth. But that is essentially the gist of it. Like you can see the number of people that are attending up here. So this says pre-live. I haven't actually gone live yet. It's almost like doing a TV show. But that's the gist of it. So I just wanted to show very briefly how easily that can be done. And this is something that you own today. So that's the live event concept. Again, 10,000 users or less. It's all, it's listen, not talk for those 10,000 folks, right? Which is different from a Teams meeting, which we'll talk about in a sec, which is 250 people or less, where everyone is free to have two-way communication back and forth. So that's the main difference there. So let me jump back to the
Ricardo,
slides
before
here.
you leave
Yes.
the live events topic, we
Mhm.
do have a question around the transcript aspect. The question is, when showing live events or video meetings, are you able to touch on the transcript aspect of it that can later be searched through?
Yeah, so there's two aspects to it. And I need to check from a GCC perspective. I think that concept of the captioning, real-time captioning and transcription of the live event may still be rolling out. In a regular,
I'll double check and
Go ahead.
post in the
Thanks.
thread.
Yep. So yeah, so there is that concept of real-time captioning as I'm talking, and then that turning into a transcript for the live event. But certainly, the event itself gets recorded. You as the producer can download the live event recording, and once you put it in Stream, which you guys all have, that certainly does auto transcription of the audio into a text file next to the video that is searchable and all of that good stuff. So whether it's live event doing the transcription or you taking the file and put it in Stream and letting Stream do the transcription, you can get some transcription out of the content. So that's the kind of the short answer there. So that was a quick little tutorial on live events. The good news about a session like this is you know where to reach me for follow-up. So if there's other follow-up questions on that, feel free to reach out to me. But let's transition into Teams in general. And I know for many of you, this is a transition from a long time use of Skype for Business. What this visual is really trying to show is, many people kind of think of Teams as simply the next version of Skype. And really, while it does all the things Skype, does, it is certainly more than that, right? So Skype has been your chat feature, your potentially your calling, and you've been doing meetings as well. We're doing all that in Teams. We're also managing documents and managing, projects and in a team atmosphere. We are obviously hosting meetings, and we're also integrating, other business applications, whether it be, a website tab that lets you, put a tab to your favorite site that your team uses, or whether it's actually third-party apps that are recently released to GCC. The goal with Teams is to have all the things that you need to do from a teamwork perspective in one place. One single pane of glass is really the goal there. And when I talk about Teams, I usually talk about it from these four pillars in terms of why is Teams so effective for teamwork and collaboration. The first one I usually begin with is really just the idea of this communication using chat, right? And so today, your communication is primarily your email inbox, but you now have the ability to kind of transition a lot of that communication into chat, which in many cases is a little more appropriate. I like to say if you are constantly sending 1 or 2 sentence emails back and forth to each other, those are really meant to be chats, right? And so we often hear back from folks who use Teams for a while, my email inbox reduced. Sometimes people say a third. I've heard some people say half of their email inbox got reduced because that volume is going over into a chat concept. But that's what Teams chat is about: persistent discussions. The chat persists, it's threaded, and it's available to be scoped into different channels, basically. So my classic example, if I'm on the IT, if I'm part of the IT team, what kind of things do we work on? We work on maybe desktop support, we work on security, we work on Windows upgrades. All of those can be a channel such that when I'm talking about that thing, I talk about it in that channel. When I have files for that thing, I put the files in that channel. And we'll see in a sec what that looks like, but that just really gives a great way to self-organize. But chat also occurs in what we call one-to-one or private chat, and we'll see all this in a sec when I jump over to Teams. But chat is, again, a key piece to Teams. Also, this confidence of being able to do that securely, right? It's in the GCC, the government cloud. It plays nicely with all the security and compliance, features of Office 365, and it works across different devices. So that's kind of, comfort that not only can I work in this environment, but as a tenant, I kind of know what's going on there. I've got the compliances built in, all of those good things as another tenant. We're going to talk a lot about meetings today, but having, oops, I went a little too far there. Having one place where all of those meetings occur, video, audio. I think many of you are working towards meeting rooms and other things like that. All of those in one place, joining a meeting with one click. These are all the kind of things that really help our collaboration increase. And then the last one here, integrating and customizing, right? Whether that be the customization of being a member of a team and being able to add a new channel or a new tab that helps your team members out, or even adding some of the third-party apps that are out there. All of these are, again, other things that just help increase our collaboration. So those are typically the kind of 4 pillars I like to talk about at a very high level in terms of what is Teams, why do we use it? And I can let me jump into the team concept here for a sec and talk through that. So let me switch over here. As I'm switching, doesn't sound like it's any Q&A queuing up yet. So switch over. So we're back in our environment here. So let's do a quick overview where I'd like to start, just because, again, many of you are kind of coming from a Skype background. I like to start with this chat icon here. Really, this is what we call private chat or one-to-one chat. And this, out of all the Teams, is really the one thing that's the closest to being the Skype replacement, right? This is where I can fire up a chat with anyone in the organization and, and start chatting with them. So in this case, I'm gonna find and chat with my buddy Nestor here. When I get this chat started, though, you'll see me and Nestor have been chatting since back in November. So, this is then that concept of that persistent chat. Great for us having this long-term conversation, being able to search our conversations and, see what we talked about, last year and all of that kind of thing. So, but I can chat with anyone, even with multiple people, right? So here is a chat. If I look over here, it's a chat with me, Joni, and Nestor. So multiple chats, still persistent, right? We've been talking since October here. And not only chat, but also you see there's a files tab here, because we all, in this case, have OneDrive. We're able to share files with each other in the one-to-one chat, and those kind of persist. So as you can kind of look at this, it's almost like a little pseudo team we've got here, just by a couple clicks of just adding someone to a group chat, and there you go. And of course, we're just a couple clicks away from starting up an actual meeting with each other or sharing our desktop in this same conversation as well. So this is, yeah, go ahead.
There's a question which I think would be good for everyone to hear. Would the chats be available in my Outlook email ?
Right. So yeah, unlike Skype, Skype would kind of migrate it over to that conversations area. I don't think that occurs with Teams, and I think that may be because it's persisting or being archived for you in the Teams environment. So I don't think you get that conversation folder for your Teams chat like you did for Skype.
Yes, Ricardo. So the conversation for Teams, the conversation that happens in Teams, that is actually archived under the group in Outlook, instead of just a separate conversation tab as they may be used to from Skype. So that is where it is.
Yeah. And these are under the covers, under the hood of this thing. Yes, the Office 365 group concept that some of you may be aware of is being used by teams. SharePoint is being used by teams under the covers. And so, yeah, that group is still there, and the discussion threads for that are still there. So we're here, we talked about chatting and firing up a meeting. But since we're here in the chat, so, you know, the other thing that's a little different from Skype is our chats don't have to just be, you know, black and white text as we kind of see this test 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, but this one has kind of an image. If we go down here, we'll see that obviously I've got some things going along the bottom here, but I'm going to hit this little A or this format button. You can see we got all the things you kind of would expect from, you know, like a richly formatted email, right? Whether it's, you know, bullets or highlights or things of that nature. I can do all those things. I can, you know, put hyperlinks. So definitely much more than just a quick black and white, you know, text kind of thing. This could be, you know, have some elegance or richness to it, including adding our, you know, our favorite emojis, including adding, you know, GIFs and even stickers like the one I added up here. So all of those things really help to just you know, get a little more pizzazz, I guess, to the text or the chat message. Okay. So we'll see that more in a second as we jump over to Teams chat, but I thought I'd start here in the private chat to just give you that concept. You can see on the side the private chats that I kind of want to pin. I can do that and pin them here so I don't, you know, miss them. Recent ones get stored over here on the side as well, and I can kind of get through the, you know, through them by, if I'm looking for things where I talk with Nestor, I use the little filter button, shows me all the conversations I've had with Nestor, and then of course the search box at the top, if I wanted to find messages where in this case I said the word test 1, 2, 3, you know, it's able to find those as well. So that's the one-to-one chat in a nutshell. Okay. Where let's now go back over to this area, and really this to some degree is kind of usually where you land initially. What we're looking at here is the list of teams that we're in on this side. You can see 3 teams here and channels underneath, which we'll talk more about in a sec. But kind of first power tip towards, you know, managing all the teams. I mean, in my world, I'm in 50 teams at least. And how do you manage that? Well, you'll see that this person, even you see 3 teams are here, but in the hidden teams area, there's more, right? So they're actually a member of several more teams, but they've chosen to hit the hide button to hide them from their view. That also helps to kind of suppress the notifications from those emails or those teams as well. So that's kind of the first step in kind of managing the volume, is getting good with managing the notifications. So hiding and showing the team, as well as following or not following the channel. When I follow, for instance, this business taxes and licenses channel, if I follow it, that's me telling teams I don't want to miss anything going on in this channel. This one is real important to me, or you know, key to what I do every day or whatever. But you'll notice I have a hidden channel here. Apparently, while I'm on the finance team, I don't do much with FY19 budget monitoring. Maybe I'm an FY20 person, right? So whatever conversations you're having about FY19, you can have them, and I have hidden it, and I don't follow that channel, and so I don't get the real-time notifications about every little post going on in there. And so that's why I really encourage you to use as many channels as you need, really, because the more channels you use, the more opportunity you're giving your team members to ignore things, you know, for lack of a better word. You know, today in your email inbox, you have one inbox, you've got to process every email, even the ones that aren't really related to you. You've got to delete them all or whatever. This gives you a chance to kind of self-organize and kind of pick and choose what things you want to be alerted about. So in my real world, I'm in a team with 99 channels in it. I only care about one of the channels of those 99. So you would think that would be a horrible situation, except that I just hide 98 channels and I don't follow them. I show the one channel and I follow it. Conversations going all day in those 98 channels. I'm oblivious to it. but when something happens in the channel I care about, the notifications start firing off. So it works out. All the people that are part of that team are able to get their work done without necessarily giving too much volume to their other team members. So the other piece to that notification, I always kind of encourage folks in that first 5 minutes of getting in Teams I usually say click on your face or click on the little image up here and go to settings. And this is where you can set some personal settings about how you want Teams to notify you. We'll talk about mentions or show mentions. Actually, I guess we did show it, but we'll talk a little more about mentions in a sec. But I definitely encourage you to keep the email on. I know some of you are trying to limit that email, and so you come here and you see email notifications and may want to turn all of those off. I would at least recommend keeping it on for personal mentions. That's when somebody personally says, @Ricardo, they really want me to see that particular post. That's almost like they emailed me directly. I really don't want to miss those, so I leave the email on in case I'm away from Teams. At least at some point, some reminder will come into my inbox that someone's trying to reach me in Teams. The other ones kind of are, to your preference, right? You may only want pop-ups or only want it to show in your feed, your activity feed, which we'll see in a sec. And if you do use email, you have a option here about how often you want to be emailed. Some people may want it as soon as it happens, so they can get right over to Teams and check it out. Or you may want to digest every hour or every day. So you have those options as well. So definitely come in here, make sure this looks correct to you in terms of how noisy you want Teams to be for you. Okay. So between those, go ahead. Yeah.
We're kind of answering them, but if you want to read it for the audience, the first one is, can you add distribution groups in Teams like you can in Skype?
If you're asking from the perspective of when I create a new team, because that question came up actually this morning, there is that concept so that you don't have to necessarily add one person at a time. You cannot, I believe, use distribution groups to add people to a team. If you're talking about it from some other perspective, then I'm not sure. I'm not sure from that perspective, but yes, there is some ability to do it. Yeah.
One other workaround can be also, you can change your distribution list to an Office 365 group, and then you can upgrade an Office 365 group into a team.
Yeah. Yep. So you do have some options there if you have a large volume of people that you need to get into a team. Yeah.
One other one for clarification is for a Teams meeting, all attendees must have Teams on their end, correct? Can they click and join without any download?
Right. So yeah, they do not, in a Teams meeting, the attendees do not necessarily all need Teams. When you're in a meeting, the meeting has a link that could be used for someone to join, and you can have settings that determine whether it hits a lobby or this and that. But you do have the flexibility to add someone externally or someone that doesn't have Teams. As long as they have internet in a browser, they could essentially join the meeting via browser. This experience gets a little better if they did download the desktop client. But that comes up a lot as people are trying to collaborate with external people. They don't have to be fully licensed for X, Y, and Z for the meeting concept. Now, if you're trying to make them a guest of your team for long-term collaboration, then they could still use the browser for that. The desktop app would be better, but they're going to be in as a guest with minimal abilities. Full abilities, of course, would need a license. So there's certainly lots of things that guests couldn't do because they're not licensed for Teams in your tenant. So hopefully that helps.
One last one is, are conversations that take place in Teams subject to public records request and retention rules?
So so just like your email and files, Teams plays nicely with the security and compliance story, right? The chats are e-discoverable and also are subject to retention policies you put in place. So if you say, hey, my chats need to disappear after a year, just like you can with files or email, Teams plays along with that concept. as well. The files actually are still governed by your SharePoint retention or security and compliance. So Teams is really just kind of borrowing the SharePoint online sites to handle files. So there's no team specific retention related to the files. It's really the SharePoint file retention. So the short answer is yes. Teams, like everything else in your O365 world, is in the eDiscovery landscape, but also works with the retention policies that you may set up for it.
That's all for now.
Okay. So we talked about teams and channels. Again, I recommend as many channels as you can. And what is a channel? It's really the different pockets or scopes of information where we get a dedicated place to discuss stuff in chat. We also get a dedicated place to store files related to that channel, as well as the ability to add tabs related to that channel. So you can see here your typical things you can add a tab to. Popular one is like what the website tab, just an ability to get one click to a website. OneNote is a popular one, I'm sure. we waited a long time for that to come to GCC. And then as you start enabling some of the third-party apps, you'll start to see those being added as well. There may not be any today from that perspective, but that's probably an ongoing thing. So yeah, we can add tabs and we have files. So you can see here, I don't know what I've got linked to, but I've got some website tabs that apparently aren't going to anything. I don't know what I was trying to do there. Yeah, so there's some file that needs a login, and it'll let me do that, but I would have to log in. So that's what that channel concept is: dedicated conversations about that thing, dedicated files, dedicated tabs. Okay, so each time you do a channel, you get the ability to kind of do all of those things. And all of those things, from a notification perspective, will be seen in this activity feed button. I kind of think of this as your new inbox, for Teams. In my world, I keep Teams and Outlook open all day long, the two, and I kind of usually sit on this button in terms of seeing things come through the feed. So this will be across all your teams, depending on how you've set your notifications. Will determine what comes in here. But again, you can see mentions of you or channels that you're in, those kind of get a prominence. If you're added to a team, those things are shown. So just across the board, you'll just see activity as it's coming along. I will say it's got some smarts to it. Some people are just concerned that this will be just an overly chatty piece here. But for instance, you could be in a conversation thread in chat that maybe has 30 replies. You're not going to see 30 individual notifications over here. It's smart enough when you kind of come back to it to say, I forget the verbiage, but something to the effect of, someone and 29 other people reply to your conversation or something like that. So I like that feature. It knows how to collapse some things that, make sense, so that I'm not just seeing a flat notification for every single thing. So that's pretty good. So that's our activity feed, our chat, and our teams.
Ricardo?
Yeah.
There are several, 4 questions. So instead of trying to type the answer for everyone, you might just want to just answer it. I'll ask the question. The first one is there a video release? Is there a video service you could use with Microsoft Teams?
Okay. So depending on where you're going with that question, I would think the answer is yes. You have Stream, which would be the video service for Office 365, formerly it was Office 365 Video, but that's your enterprise repository for your videos. And so, in fact, when you record a meeting, which we're about to see in a sec, that goes directly into Stream. And is available for the people in your team to see. You don't have to worry about changing, worrying about permissions or where to put it. It's a very elegant process there. So short answer, Stream is where would be the video service for Teams and Office 365.
All right. The next one is, I think you covered it already. Maybe the person was not on, but can we chat with one person as we do in Skype from our contact list?
Right. So that would be the chat button here. Depending, I guess, on how your implementation goes. I mean, I have seen Skype groups come over during a migration to Teams. So you may see the same groups that you created in Skype come over here, but short answer is yes. You have those one-to-one conversations here in the private chat area, and you can see here the button for creating a new contact group, so you can make new groups if you need to.
All right. And the next one is the Ohio installation of Teams does not appear to allow the ability to create teams or manage notifications. Is the plan to provide that ability to Ohio users?
So I think you're correct in terms of the general approach that really all of my customers tend to use is that only a few people can create a team. So someone in the agency is usually deemed the one to create teams on behalf of the agency, or you're sending in a request, to OIT to get it created. So yes, it shouldn't be it's not surprising to hear that you can't create a new team. I think that's kind of a standard. Not having the ability to do notification settings is a little surprising. It sounds like you're saying you don't see the settings area here, maybe. So I've not seen that before. You should be able to have your settings notifications. You should be able to hide and show teams and follow channels and that kind of thing. So that could be something we need to look into. But yes, the creation of new teams is usually designated for certain people.
Is there a way to have meetings or live events auto caption? Oh, you already addressed that. Sorry.
Okay. So to that point, let's talk about meetings a little bit, because I think that's, as we're working remotely, that's going to be what a lot of our day involves. Let me go back to the slides here for a sec. So this meetings concept, just to talk about it at a high level and then to show it, I'll think about this idea that really Teams can be your one single pane of glass for all your meetings activities, whether it's stuff you do before and after, or the stuff you're doing during the meeting. So kind of just like we talked about before, your before activity might be deciding who to join and whether or not you need external guests in that meeting, which is pretty easy to do. Maybe collaborating on documents with real-time co-authoring ahead of time. But once you're in it, we'll see right here in a sec some of the features that you have, like the ability to record or like the ability to mute yourself or to mute others. So we'll see that. And then afterwards, if you have recorded, to be able to review that recording after the fact. I know, in our world, we're often double and triple booked. I'm sure that's probably your world too. I really rely on people recording meetings that I missed so that I can watch them later. If they didn't record, I would just miss out on that content. And so that's kind of that before, during, and after piece. And so let's take a look at the meeting concept over in the demo environment. Switch it back. So here I am, and I go to my calendar. This is where, when meetings that I am in, I can easily join them. And in fact, if they are a Teams meeting, a nice join online button. So with one click, I'm in the meeting, right? But outside of that, I could schedule a meeting, which looks just like Outlook, and we kind of saw that when we did live events. Or I could even meet now, right? I need a meeting right away. I can join it and then start pulling people in. So let me just go with this one. So you can see here, I am in here by myself, but I could easily, start putting names in here of people that I want to join me in my meeting, and then it would kind of call them, and they would just, be in within seconds. And I have my call info here that just got copied to my clipboard. If I was to show you what that looks like, it probably looks like what you accepted today. Oh, this is just the text. I should have used Word. But the join link, the phone number in this case, and all those things would be part of that. That's all you would need to email someone for them to jump into this meeting. And I would see all the people that are in the meeting here on the side. What's that? Along with their mute buttons. So we'll talk a second about meeting etiquette, but when you first start this thing out, you might forget about your mute button, and might have some background noise from yourself or from teammates. So to be able to mute them sometimes is useful when they can unmute themselves. If there were more people in this meeting, I'd have a mute all button as well to make that easy. But that's just something to keep in mind. But let's go here to this little banner where a lot of functionality exists, and you kind of get there just by hovering over this area. Starting from the left, you'll see that's my button for turning on my camera so people can see as we talk, or just a microphone, and that's my mute button as well for myself. And then this one here is the share button, where I can, as you would guess, share either my desktop or a particular window or a PowerPoint or something like that. Also of note here is the little checkbox for including system audio. I think this feature got added maybe 6 months ago or something. But you know, if I have like a video playing in a PowerPoint, that lets the people who are seeing me share my desktop also hear that audio as well. That feature is not available in the live event like that we're doing now, but it is available in a regular Teams meeting. Again, Teams meeting is 250 people or less. Live events 10,000 or less. But and Teams meeting is two-way. Everybody can talk. I'll skip this for just a sec. This button here, this show conversation, while we can be chatting video and audio, we could also be chatting on the side. This is useful for like putting hyperlinks as we're kind of talking to, you know, to go to websites or anything that kind of complements the conversation. So that's there with all the capabilities along the bottom that we talked about before. Next to that is the participants button to show again who's in the meeting, and also to be able to control or see whether or not someone is muted. And of course the hang up button. In the middle though is the more actions button. The one thing missing here, I think just because of the demo environment I'm in, or the fact that I'm not don't have video in this demo environment, is blur background. So you should have that capability, which means people can see your face, but the what's behind you is blurred. Super useful, and it's particularly in the case of working remotely, working from home. You know, just keeps distracting things behind you from showing. If you've ever seen the now popular meme of the BBC, I think, or the CNN guy with the kid coming behind the scenes, that's what that's meant to help with, among other things. But other things that we've got here, show device settings will become useful, especially if you've got you know, Bluetooth headphones or anything like that for having these meetings sometimes. And if you've got more than one, you may need to come in here to switch between a device for either the audio or the microphone and those kind of things. So that's an important button there. And then really kind of skipping down to the start recording button is there. So those are really the key ones from this, in addition to the blur background. Turn off incoming video, I guess, could be important too. While everybody may be sharing their video, if you feel like maybe like your bandwidth is being taxed by all the video, you can turn that off. Even if people are showing their video, you're not seeing it, you know, it just might help you know, if you feel like you got some network issues. So that's a good one as well. But those are the most of your meeting experience kind of is occurring through this banner here. And while you're in the meeting, you can see these other things are still active. I can still click around, like if I needed to go to private chat and continue a chat, you can see my meeting is still occurring up in the corner here. I can just click on it to jump back into it. So don't necessarily feel locked into the meeting like you can't do anything else. You do have that ability to click around even while the meeting is going on. On the roadmap for GCC at some point would be pop-out chats, so that you'd actually have a new window for some of these conversations that are going. But as of right now, it'll pop up in the corner there. So that's the meeting concept. I've got some tips and tricks about meetings coming up here in a sec, but I wanted to just show that there as well. Okay, so let me jump back to the slides here. Okay, go ahead here. So again, for those that are, you know, newly now working remotely, I last week or so, or earlier this week, put a little article out on LinkedIn about tips for your first like working from home meeting. And so my high level tips are: one, be aware of your mute button. you know, that just can be distracting for folks. And then it's particularly, I think, important because our background noise may be a little different these days than it would be in the office. It might be a little more awkward to not be aware that you're off mute. So be aware of your mute button. Like the awkward background noise you're probably hearing right now. The second one, turn on your camera. People already know what you look like, right? So turn it on, primarily because, you know, when we were in the office, we had the benefit of body language as part of our communications. That's important, and we don't have to lose that. So we can turn on our camera so that we can, you know, continue to see each other and see that body language as we're communicating. It doesn't have to be completely, you know, disconnected and virtual. So take advantage of the technology you have. And then third one I'd say is kind of plan to end early on these meetings. There's a tendency when they're all virtual to just go back to back. But in real life, we still have, you know, needs between meetings. No, we're no longer walking from conference room A to conference room B. We don't need that travel time per se, but we still need time in between meetings. So I don't know if you use My Analytics, sometimes it will remind you that, hey, based on your calendar, you should consider 45-minute meetings instead of 60. I know it told that to me, and that was a very useful tip. So thought I'd share that there. So those are just my 3 high-level tips for now that you're starting to have these different kinds of meetings, what kind of things to kind of be aware of. And then I'm going to come back to this in a sec, but I want to just go back to the demo environment and just make sure we've covered a nice little overview of all the Teams items here. So let me jump back. So we talked about the activity tab, the chat area, and the Teams area. We talked about how we can hide and show these teams. Our calendar is there to show our calendar ability to jump into a meeting with one click. Some of you may or may not have something kind of enabled here in the calls area for, in the calls area. And then we have our files area, which shows us the files we have across the teams and even gives us access to our OneDrive account. So I kind of laugh at Teams sometimes because it's just really desperately trying to keep me from clicking off of it, right? It wants to bring everything that I do into one spot so I never have to leave it. I mean, pretty much the only thing missing here is my email that, you know, for people outside of my teams, but I do spend at least half of my day, you know, in Teams and the other half in Outlook, essentially. These are other pinned apps, you know, as apps get integrated or into the tenant, you know, you'll start to see the ability to do those as well. I know a lot of people have a lot of interest in Planner to be used, and so you do have that ability to see that there. But even if it wasn't integrated there, it is a tab that could be added to a channel, as you see right there. And then, of course, it's also standalone if you just want to go, you know, to your kind of Office 365 waffle menu and just go to Planner, and you can do that as well. But again, Teams is really good at bringing all these things into one spot, so I don't have to click around and change things. I don't think I mentioned the search box at the top. You also want to remember that you have a pretty powerful search engine behind the scenes when it's time to find something. So for instance, I'm looking for the word roads, right? So it's finding all the messages where somebody said the word roads. It's also finding all the files where road exists, whether it's in the title like this one or even embedded in some PDF somewhere. So I guess the word roads is somewhere on page 28 of this, you know, big PDF document. So that search piece, you know, it's very powerful. We shouldn't have to peck around, you know, as much these days for content. You know, take advantage of search. Same with our teams. The filter button, just like on a private chat, really helps if you've got a lot of teams. You don't necessarily have to go browsing through finding it. Let's say I wanted to find I think I have a road team. Yep, I just type road. There's District 9 road. It'll take me right to it. So the ability to really search for things, channels or teams, you know, it's going to find all of those things just with very quick response time. So keep that in mind as well. I think then we talked about our settings and notifications there. So what we didn't talk about is the files area. So clicking on the file, every channel has its own files area. The thought is that that's where you put files specific to that channel. But it's also great in that I can access these files and again, not have to leave, the comfort of my team's area. So you can see I can certainly open it up to view it. But with one click, I can open it up to edit as well, whether I like to edit in Teams or even if I want to edit in the browser or if I want to edit in the full-blown Word application. It'll let me do all of that. And in all of those cases, I'm getting the ability to do what we call real-time co-authoring, meaning as I bring someone else into this document, we're in at the same time, we can see each other's cursors move around the screen. None of these involve downloading. You do have a download button, but that kind of takes it out of the magic area where that co-authoring occurs. You're just bringing your own copy, not synced to your PC. Editing is where you kind of keep it in the cloud and you work on it in the cloud and everyone is able to access it. So I always say use this very sparingly, if at all, right? If you really want to continue to collaborate with your team, use these buttons. They're always working on the cloud copy. You can see here, I can get that light version of editing capability here. And with one click, I can even start to have conversation with my team about this document as I'm working it. And in fact, if I needed some help with this one, I would @mention Nestor. I hit the @ symbol and search for a name, and then I might say, help me with this. Nestor's going to get a notification, and with one click, he's in this document as well. I'm seeing his cursor move around. We're chatting about it on the side. And while we're doing all this, we're really doing it out loud. I say kind of working out loud because you can see out here in the conversation area, the whole team is seeing me and Nestor's chat and the document we're working on, and the team is one click away from joining our session as well. So this is a big change from our inbox, right? Where if I email Nestor to help me, the rest of the team is clueless to our collaboration, right? That's happening in the black box of our inbox, whereas this is like working on something in a bullpen, like up on the whiteboard, and the rest of the team can look over your shoulder. For some people, that's a terrifying thought. We like to hold our things till they're done and then I'll show them to you. For others, this open collaboration is really useful. I've seen it enable collaboration scenarios that I wouldn't even know how to create, from an email perspective. People have been able to give me insights that I didn't even know you had. I didn't even know you had expertise in that area. Thanks, for chiming in. So it's that kind of world that I think Teams is trying to create. But hopefully you see the value though of, being able to do this collaboration again without having to leave Teams, keeping it all together and knowing that all the documents that you're putting in these areas are, already able to be viewed by all the team members. You don't have to worry about, can my team members see this? If you're in the team, you have access to everything. Behind the scenes, good old SharePoint Online is storing all this stuff. You could live your team's life never actually clicking into SharePoint and just use it as we see here. But if you did want to, you could always open it up in SharePoint and see those files and do all the SharePoint things you'd want to do. For instance, you may need to come out here every now and then if you do want to do something like version history, where you'll see a version every time someone has changed a document and maybe you need to go back to an old version or something like that. That's you do have to come out to SharePoint, at least right now, for that, as well as to use Power Apps and Flow if you're doing anything like that. So you can see there are a lot of things happening in the SharePoint world related to files. On the roadmap is more integration of the SharePoint stuff. They're going to give us yet another reason to not have to leave the SharePoint environment, the Teams environment, as they bring those features in. But today there are still some things you might have to open in SharePoint to go see or do. But outside of some of those things, you can get a lot done, including new documents, uploading things. All that can happen right here in the Teams experience. But the key here, I think, is that co-authoring piece. The days of someone waiting for me to finish my part before they can start on their part is over. The days of needing to email these documents back and forth should be over. Put them in Teams, and your whole team can see them. You can work on a doc from start to finish in Teams. Okay. That, I think, is a high-level overview of all the stuff. I want to switch back to the deck to kind of talk about, okay, Ricardo, you just said a lot of stuff here. break it down for me. What should I do when I go back, when I end this session and I go back and start my work? Here's my thoughts on that. As opposed to, some of this can be overwhelming, all of the features and bells and whistles. I would say focus one on your private chats, because that's, you're probably comfortable with chatting in Skype. Chat in that private chat area in Teams. Maybe even before you're comfortable with the team chat, private chat is kind of like Skype. Deal with that, and don't forget mentions. I often come back to a team a week or two later, and they'll say nobody's seeing the stuff I'm putting out there. Sometimes, especially in the beginning, you need to make a lot of use of mentions, whether it's individuals or whether it's mentioning the team or the channel. That'll really help to get visibility and help people see that, yes, some content is being placed in the teams that they need to see. So don't forget those mentions. The other thing I'd say is leverage the document capability, right? To store your documents here versus, locally on your machine. Putting them there is where everybody can see it, and you're getting the magic of the co-authoring when you use the files area in Teams. So focus on that. And then lastly, channels. I often come back to a team after a couple of weeks and they still just have that one general channel. They're not really leveraging, the ability. You've essentially just recreated your email inbox, right? One stream of thought for all the things your team does. You have the ability, almost like you would, create rules and folders in Outlook. You have that ability to start to self-organize the work that you're doing in Teams by making more channels. So, be free, freely create new channels, or work with your team to figure out what best channels are there. I personally don't, think. I see some teams want to be very, just have just a few channels, 5 or 7 or less, or whatever that magic number is, to try to keep it all nice and neat. I say 99, like the one team I'm in. What's the problem with 99 if I can hide them and only show the ones I need, and so forth? So. Different trains of thoughts on that, but I would say just leverage that channels feature, in your work, and don't just stick with that general channel. So hopefully that kind of boils it down to 2 or 3 things you can kind of think about as you go off and start to have meetings and have collaboration in teams. Certainly, you guys know I work with you guys often. I will always be around to help with questions and give more resources, but I just thought I'd throw a few here on the slide. This first one is really the landing page for tons of content here. That's what this long, picture is that first link. Tons of content, including little small like snackable videos. So maybe you forgot how to create a channel. You come here and there's a 30-second video on how to create a channel, or how to change your notifications and things like that. So this is a good one just in general for all things Teams. The second one might be nice if you're brand new to Teams. This is an interactive one where it kind of tells you to click here and kind of simulates you being in a team and with kind of simulated interface. So it's nice. It's not as passive as maybe as watching a video. Lets you kind of interact with it, as the name implies. And then the last one is just a little link that, again, if you're trying to get a high level overview in a quick few minutes, that could be a link that could help as well, with some helpful tips. So hopefully those help. There is tons of content out online for Teams, and then you do have myself and the rest of the account team to help you along the way as well. With that being said, this session today, in my mind, is not meant to just be a one and done session where you'll never see me again. We all, the account team and really all my peers across the public sector, we're all trying to support, these efforts on an ongoing basis. I think some of my peers are doing daily sessions like this. I don't yet know when I plan to do the next one of mine, but I do plan to continue to do them. So keep that in mind. This isn't going to be your only chance to learn about Teams. With that said, any other Q&A things out there to answer in the last couple 3 minutes?
We had one around the use of Access databases with Teams or SharePoint. Yes.
Yeah, that's probably a big conversation there. I mean, I guess the short answer would be there's no easy button for bringing an Access database or Access app into Teams. I think in the current kind of O365 world, we would kind of suggest some other kind of maybe refactoring that and using some other things in the Office 365 ecosystem to as opposed to that Access app. But the short answer there is I'm not aware of any easy button for using your current Access database with Teams.
I think we've hit all the other questions.
Okay.
If I see another one jump in, I will call your attention to it. But
Okay.
Awesome session today, Ricardo.
Thanks. Yeah, and so for all you guys at DAS, again, I'm available. I'm more than happy to continue these. I think with the leadership at DAS, they just kind of wanted to get one going here quickly, given the current situation. But again, rest assured, this does not have to be your only chance to get some help with Teams. So those of you that know me know I'll talk your ear off about Teams if you let me. So just let me know what help you need and we'll make it happen. And last thing I guess I'll say is the link that you clicked to get into this live event after we're done here, and after I guess it gets some time to render, maybe it's almost instant really, but it may take a couple minutes. That link will then be a link to the recording of this session, the full session. So if you need to watch it again, or if you need to just remind your peers that weren't able to join that that they can watch it, watch the recording by using that same link, just let them know that. So this will be available for a while. With that, we're at the 2-minute marks, or the 2 o'clock mark. So I think we'll close it out, and we'll continue this in a future session. Thank you guys for joining.
Thanks, everybody.